All right, you beautiful people. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Hope the update has been treating you guys well. Today, we will be doing an introduction, early thoughts. Should I pull or pass, pull out or all in on Zeratu? Let's break down his kit first, guys. So, firstly, basic attack standard, it'll just be an AoE cone in front of him. So looking at his base kit, for his crit attack, he does do a multi-hit. So he will hit 3 times for his crit attack, which is fantastic. He does apply crit damage up for melee allies as well. And he does do an AoE damage taken down buff to himself for 2 seconds as well. And when we look at his exclusive skill, praise be to come to us. We got a stackable attack speed up unit. So we've been waiting for it. Jean, her kit is super lackluster, so we've got to be grateful that we've got a better attack speed buffer that does stack as well. So don't be sad if you already 3A'd your Jean. If you 3A and 5D'd her, she will still be useful regardless. But let's move into the awakenings. So standard 3A, where he will reduce his cooldown. Now at his 5A, this is very interesting. We have a crit rate up buff to himself. He gives himself an attack speed steroid for 15 seconds, which is crazy because it's stackable. So what that means is Jean gives 20%. On his own exclusive skill, he gives 20%. And on top of that, he gets a 30% for 15 seconds. So short-term content, especially if you're pushing through stages, even through PvP, he will be dealing damage. Um, when taking fatal damage, applies an Endure Shield for 3 seconds. Very, very similar to Suyuha, that kind of build, and especially when we go into his 7A, very similar to Suyuha. So sadly, I wish he had multi-hit. It would make him a lot more appealing, but it's just one hit. But on his 7A, so he will remove the cooldown of his crit attack for 4 seconds. So what that means is his crit attack will have a 0-second cooldown. So for 4 seconds after he uses his exclusive skill, once you have his 7A, he is spamming this. 250% of attack as crit damage for 3 times. He is spamming that over and over. These buffs do not stack, so it'll just be flat uptime no matter how many times you're doing it. Um, but during that 4 seconds, he'll also be dealing. This is the investment that I have in him. Not the best Splendor, but actually very serviceable Splendor because we got all the offensive ones that we do need for testing. We do have his accessories maxed out, and holy, we got lucky. I may do a video in the future whether it's better to go all crit rate traits or a mix of crit rate, crit damage, and attack. I'll probably need a bit more dice before I want to test that, but these are pristine rolls. And that just took me about like 600k, which was one of my better roll sessions of all time. Let's go into his Naraka damage, just flying right into it. This is the setup that I'm using right now. I have Mago in the back and I'm using auto transfusion. So if you notice, that's why I have this annoying little revive button because it is currently bugged. Auto transfusion, it basically kills your unit in seconds. From a lot of testing from players, Mago is really the only unit that can survive that. So she is having that auto transfusion buff, so keep that in mind when you see the damage numbers. So he does very, very good damage. But when you notice, after those 15 seconds, he doesn't keep up with Mako. He can't. But still very, very respectable damage. Solid DPS. But let's do another run. So he was clearly in contention for second that whole time. Let's see what happens this time. And this is kind of something that I've been seeing with his damage numbers a lot. He fluctuates in damage a lot throughout a run. So I've seen him like in the last run where he's consistently second, and like here I've seen him fall to around like that 5-6 range. Um, so yes, he does very good DPS. It does look like he has a lot of variance as well. Um, I'm not sure why. It could just be my triple gears and he's not able to triple as consistently. That could be one issue. It could just be an effect of because after that initial 15 seconds and he has a damage fall off after he loses that attack speed, that could be the difference as well. Um, quickly going into the Naraka team, um, if you guys don't know, Jean hits like a wet noodle. Her kit is super outdated at this point, and players that have her essentially only will use her for her invincibility at the start of battle or just for her attack speed buff. The problem with her crit attack, like how disgusting is that multiplier? 130% attack is crit damage, no multipliers, and applies a damage dealt buff up to itself for 2 seconds. It's like a damage dealt buff up when you're doing nothing. Like these are absolutely pathetic multipliers. Like we just like look at the power creep. We just saw Zeratu. He does what, like an 850 here? Then he does 250 3 times. But essentially when you run GN and dragons, for me, for my run, she'll do about 80 damage. So realistically, if I pull her off the team and run it as is, nothing really changes. 80 in the grand scheme of things it doesn't change my score that much. So I think this will be fine even without finding like a DPS replacement that's exactly 8T. Um, we'll just skip this through. Wait, that was really low. Surely it's not that low. Okay, that looks more reasonable. But you're still seeing a massive damage fall off just with Jean being taken out. So all that means to me, realistically, is we still need her buff. Her buff is still super important for any long form content, especially because it stacks. So even with Zeratu, we'll still want to run Jean. So that'll be for dragons. For guild boss, you'll still probably want Jean in. Units that'll come out, probably Vanessa comes out. I think the thing with Vanessa, Rena, and Charlotte, in my eyes, these have kind of been interchangeable for a lot of players. Charlotte will only be useful if you do have her 5A, just because that stacks with Eleanoa's kit as well. If you look here, her 5A is stackable, so that's just made so that Charlotte isn't completely useless, even though she's mostly useless now. So if you don't have Charlotte's 5A, you'll probably most likely have Rena, Vanessa, or Celestia. I've just found from my own testing, I don't know what happened if it's with the overcrit, overcrush changes. Celestia nerfs my damage now when I have her in again. I don't understand this game, guys. I don't know what works and what doesn't. So this is just what I've been running. And for stages, I think generally there are a lot of good units now. So it's getting to the point where even if they're quote unquote meta units, you don't really need every single one. Like if someone didn't have Annabelle and they wanted to put in Grogan, would I hate that? Not really. If someone skipped Eleanoa and say they had Rena or Harmonia, I mean, is that ideal? Definitely not. You still want Eleanoa over those units. But if you're running Harmonia, is that like a bad lineup? Not really either, right? So we kind of get into these spaces where some good units are being left off the board. Do I think Jean is worth a slot? I think she is. Um, I still just haven't figured out who I want to replace from here. Realistically, you could probably pull out Grogan to put in Jean or something like that, and then maybe have Rena in for Rift stages. Annabelle, I love her so much, but the problem is she has nothing else on her kit. Move speed down, move speed up. Feels really bad, even though her 7A is one of the better 7As in the game. It's tragic how the mighty have fallen. Um, so this is probably what I'd run for stages at kind of max investment, but definitely Grogan can deserve a spot. Rena, Annabelle at max awakening, Harmonia, Vanessa, all of these are super usable units, definitely. And especially when you get to go to Rift, Celestia will be plugged in as well. So it's getting a lot tougher to make these decisions of who should we have in, who should we have out. Even top players, it doesn't look like there's one consistent team that they've figured out that everyone's running. So don't sweat too much. I think just the important ones are the core units, um, and if you have them at the right investment, right? Like Cracky, Dusky, Elenoa, these are units that you're gonna want to have fully awakened. And if you don't, realistically, you could just leave them off your team. If you only have them at like 2, 3 star, just give them the boot. There are a lot of good units that you can put in just for support. Okay, but really quick, let's go into the pros and cons of Zeratu. What do I really like about him? His damage is incredible. Um, at his highest heights, he's the second best DPS in the game, just below Mago, and that can vary basically between 2 and 7 from my Naraka runs that I've been testing. Um, I really like this attack speed steroid for short-term content, whether that's stages, even in PvP, most of them won't last more than 15 seconds. So I think that's great as well. Finally, getting a stackable attack speed buff's good as well, and crit damage up, you can't really complain. But there are just some things about Zeratu that just really irk me the wrong way. Like AoE damage taken down, that's not really that helpful in PvP, and it's just for himself. Like, do we really think that he's going to be surviving the ranged units that we have currently in this game? Like, this feels pretty useless to me until we get enough defensive boosters that maybe that'll be meaningful. His exclusive skill, I wish there was multi-hit. That kind of feels bad as well. So even though he has really, really high damage upside, I have some big question marks about his kit. And obviously, personally, I feel really sad because this is such a sick skill to only use your crit attack for 4 seconds. But if you're only using your crit attack, look at my gears, you guys. If he's only using crit attacks, I can't use any of my triple, which is annoying, right? So obviously he's still going to do great damage. It's annoying that for 4 seconds he basically mitigates half of my gear substats, right? Still doing great damage regardless. But then my biggest issue is this endure. Um, if you're a guild versus guild, um, someone who cares about that a lot, if you're in a high ranking guild, this unit is a must have at least at 5. Because right now for guild versus guild, we needed this another endure unit. Most teams have been Shazam, Suyuha, Ophelia on the second team. The third team has kind of been a fodder team, and sometimes you'll sneak in like a Jaeger or some ranged DPSs hoping to just sneak out a victory. But now that we have another Endure unit, we'll have an Endure unit on each of the 3 Guild versus Guild teams, which make attacking very difficult, and defensively, you will put up more of a chance, especially with the addition of magic circles. RNG is going to be a nightmare. But for Guild versus Guild, he instantly shoots to one of the most important units for Guild versus Guild. But do we need another Endure unit for every other PvP content? It's 3 seconds, right? So it's the same as Suyuha. When we look at like these PvP teams, you don't have to copy my PvP team. This probably Cheeks is just something that I use. But look at these placements. Usually players will have Ophelia in the back. They might have Ophelia and Suyuha in the back. Maybe they'll do Ophelia, Suyuha, and Zeratu in the back. But what happens is these units are going to run up together. They're both going to pop their 3-second endure, and they're going to die at the same time. Maybe there's a millisecond difference, half a second difference, and then Ophelia comes in just to last a little bit longer, just to give you an extra 2 seconds. So then when I think about it, it's like, I don't really know if we need Zeratu in any of our PvP teams. even for World Arena, I mean, when you're looking at these teams, it's kind of similar, right? Where you'll have Ophelia here, Suyuha here. I mean, they're both 3 second endures, so it feels kind of gross. I think at higher, like if you're really, really pushing World Arena, those like milliseconds and those half seconds can definitely matter in matchups. But generally, it feels like we don't need it. I guess it feels like we don't need it if you already have Ophelia 5 aid and if you have Suyuha 5 aid. If you don't have Suyuha 5 aid, I think that it's not an issue at all. I think just for the players that already have Suyuha, this makes it feel a little gross because then you're only really getting the Endure just for guild versus guild. You'll probably throw him into PvP, but will it make a meaningful difference? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. You'd really only do the 5A for this attack speed steroid to amp his DPS. So there's a lot of things that I love about him. There's a lot of things that I dislike about him as well, and I feel like they could have made him less clunky. Um, Even giving him a few stacked shields, right? Like if they gave him a 3 second endure, but he has 2 stacked shields, like that would make him a premium PvP unit. But right now, he doesn't fulfill a meaningful slot outside of just an endure body bag. Okay, but let's go into the. I don't want to rant too much about my problems with how they made this character, but we have 4 units right now. So we have Jaeger, Annabelle, Astar. Okay, sorry. Give me a second. Astar and Zeratu. Holy. In terms of priority, you can completely skip Annabelle. Sadly, I just don't think that she's worth any crystals or investment. If you get her through the general banner, that's nice. Is she worth, even if you have her 7, kind of whether she's worth the 7A is a bit debatable because we might get a Frostbite unit soon. I still love her to death. It's just tragic. So we're really looking at these 3 units, Jaeger, Zeratu, and Astar. Jaeger and Zeratu are 2 of the best DPS units in the game. They're not going to be number 1, but they're probably within that 2 to 5 range, realistically. Um, but they need their 7A. So Jaeger needs his 7A, Zeratu needs his 7A if you want to hit those kinds of DPS ceilings. But outside of that, I'd say Jaeger probably has a better base kit. Like when we look at Jaeger's kit, so he gives crush damage up to melees, and then he'll give crush rate up to all allies. That's got to be one of the best buffs you can give your team versus attack speed and crit damage up. Both are really, really good in my eyes. Um, it's a shame that Zeratu couldn't overtake Mago. I think these types of units, Jaeger, Zeratu, it's like you can get one copy just to fill them in for um, most teams. I'd say Jaeger, in terms of getting to 3 star, will be over priority for Zeratu. But if you're looking to get one of these units to 7, I'd say get Zeratu to 7, and then you could have Jaeger 3. But to me, it's so close that even if you went Jaeger 3 and just got Zeratu 7, I wouldn't necessarily be mad about that, um, assuming you have Suyuha 5. If you don't have Suyuha awakened for her Endure unit, then Zeratu, even with kind of some of the clunkiness in his kit, is going to be one of the best units in the game. Especially if you do need that Endure roll, he'll be super useful for all PvP content. Um, but that's a big caveat. So if you're a new player, feel free to go all in for Zeratu. I don't think you'd hate that investment. He'll be a solid core team for your PvP, and you can ignore Suyuha later. But Jaeger, I think if you can get him 3 star, should be perfect. So let's let's clean this up. If you need a DPS unit, Zeratu 7, Jaeger 7, Annabelle 7, a star 7. That's how DPS rankings would go. Let's talk about base kit if you're just taking a unit to 3A. I'd probably say Jaeger, Jaeger first, a star second, Zeratu third, maybe Zeratu and a star kind of closer, and Annabelle would be in 15th. Um, a star really is a bit underrated. She does terrible damage, but her kit is so good. when we look at her kit, she'll apply so many buffs. Crit rate up, crit damage up, accuracy up, crush rate up, crush damage up, attack up. Um, Even though she does terrible damage, it's so hard to tell people not to pull on her banner to 7 because we did get her for free to 5 star. So I'd actually say a star to 7 will probably be the best bet. And then after that, you can make a decision. If you need an Endure unit, feel free to go for Zeratu. If you need a DPS unit, I think either of these you can't really go wrong with. If you're kind of short on crystals, I don't even think you really need to feel bad about just getting one copy of Zeratu and saving. Um, I really don't think that it'll be that much of a difference. So that might sound like I don't think he's a great unit. I think he's fantastic. I just hate that he has some overlap with already existing units. But in terms of DPS, premium, PvP value, very good, especially if you don't have Suyuha. And for guild versus guild, he is necessary. 1000% you need him for guild versus guild. Um, so overall, how would I rate this unit? I'd say he's like a. My brain says he's like an 8.5 to 9 out of 10, but my heart tells me it's a 7. It just says he could have been done better. But hopefully you guys are enjoying the update. I know this was such a sad talk. I didn't expect to get this depressed. My triple gear is going to waste with this unit, but he does so much damage. I don't understand this game, guys, but hopefully the climb is going well for you guys. Take it easy. I'll see you guys next year. Hopefully you guys have a lot of fun times with your family. Be safe. Love you guys. Take it easy.